Every terrible D&D campaign idea could have been saved by one simple thing that can make any game unforgettable. So today I'm showing you what it is by also giving you a very easy to follow 6-step process to turn any campaign idea into the best you've ever played. And to make it extra easy to understand and use this method, we're going to take a very generic campaign premise and turn it into something amazing. But just before we jump into this miracle method, I think we need to establish the difference between an idea and a premise. Most DMs, when they sit down and start planning their campaign, come up with a premise, which is basically the synopsis of the movie, so to speak. Like, an ancient wizard has gotten more powerful over several centuries, and now he wants to conquer the known world and become a god, for example. This is actually where we're gonna start. Let's call that wizard Soreliak, because we'll stay with him for a while, so might as well give him a name. What's wrong with this premise, you ask? It has a villain, conflict, and stakes, so it feels like a good campaign idea. Well, on a surface level, maybe. But stop the bad guy is quite cliche, so if you stop there, it'll start feeling empty quite quickly. I believe the best campaigns go deeper than this and are about something. So an idea is that premise, but coupled with a question. And I will show you how to find it by going through the 6 steps I mentioned. Step 1 is very quick. Before we do anything else, we need to make sure our premise has 3 core elements: a who, a what, and a where. Who is the antagonist or force behind the main conflict? What is what they want, and where is the region, world, or place it's happening in? And so I think our wizard checks all those boxes. Who? Well, is an ancient wizard. Duh. What? He wants world domination, and where could be anywhere. Plug your own world here. For the purpose of today's video, we'll give it the incredible name of the Fantasy Kingdom. And we're done. Most DMs have at least this much. But the problems start now. Step 2 is very important. I think a lot of people miss it by not even realizing it's actually a step. It's the mysterious question idea I mentioned. I like to call it the seed question because everything else in the campaign will grow out of it. Just to be clear, this is nothing to do with plot. What you don't want to do is simply add a question mark to the premise, which in our case would be something like, will the hero stop Soreliak? I find it way more useful when the seed question is more philosophical. It should be about how the world works or how people work. I'd like you to ask yourself, what is this campaign about? What question or theme are you gonna explore with the players? And for it to be good, I think it needs 3 things. First, reasonable people should be able to disagree about the answer. If everyone in the room would give the same response, I don't think it's really a question. Second, the villain and the players should be engaging with it from different angles, because it belongs to the whole campaign and not just one side. And third, I think every player character should be able to have a personal relationship with it, because if a PC doesn't care about it, that player is going to be bored and it could compromise the mood at the table. So, what's our example campaign's seed question? I want to try this. Who gets to decide what the world should look like? Let's see how this works when we zoom in. With this question, our wizard is not really a power-hungry maniac anymore. I mean, he is, but we just added more depth. Now he's someone who looked at the world real close and saw corruption, famine, wars, etc. And he decided that him, someone with a superior intellect and actual vision, should be in charge. Because he believes he could fix things. And given how powerful he is, and godhood is actually on the table, maybe he can. So he is still very much a villain with some kind of fascist agenda. We didn't touch the premise. But now, defeating him is not just about leveling up and checking a box. We made the fight about something. The question doesn't just change the villain, but also the player's experience. Because now every faction or NPC they meet and every choice they have to make has to go through a who gets to decide filter. Is the king really better than Soreliak? Didn't he come from a long line of corrupt nobles himself? The players will become powerful as the campaign progresses and will play a role in the kingdom's fate. And even if their intentions are good, are they legitimate enough? What I like about the seed question is that it turns the campaign into a conversation, But we can't stop there, because now we need to see how this question impacts the rest of the world. By the way, if you find this video helpful at all, please hit the like button with your most powerful ability to help it reach more people and create better games for everyone. In the third step, we zoom in on the villain and ask ourselves, do they represent a specific answer to the seed question? And is that answer actually compelling? Even if they're wrong and actually bad guys, I think you need to spend a bit of time to turn your villain into the most persuasive argument for the wrong side of the debate. Because if the players can't understand what anyone, not necessarily them, but anyone, would agree with the villain, even a little bit, then the villain is just an obstacle and won't be that memorable. In our example, Soreliak's answer to who gets to decide is the most capable person, which is himself, because he truly is extremely ancient and powerful and can actually see the full picture. He has been alive for hundreds of years and seen elected leaders fail and corrupt nobles waste their power. He has seen dozens of generations just suffering. He is still a bad guy, and his methods, conquest, domination, etc., are truly awful. But at least it's possible to see how some people might choose to follow him and agree with his diagnosis. They're wrong, but we know from countless real-world examples that suffering can lead people to choosing very dark paths, so he's credible. Now, the wizard is not just an NPC, but a philosophical position the players have to confront. But this is where we need to be careful, because the seed question idea is very powerful, but it can also become a trap. If the villain and the characters are the only ones engaging with it, you'll build some kind of chess game, sure, but the D&D game will feel empty, because you haven't built an ecosystem. You need to make sure every major faction and important NPC represents a different answer to the question. Because this is where you build what I like to call the conflict web. This is step 4, and it's how our theme becomes a world. Let's go back to the example to make it easier to understand. Our seed question is who gets to decide what the world should look like. From there, we can build 4 new factions and make sure each one has a different answer. The Crown Loyalists say it's all about the bloodline. They believe tradition is stability, there is an heir to the throne, and they should rule. Sure, the heir is a child, but they will grow up eventually. Then we have the People's Council, and they have limited power at the moment. But they believe that everyone should decide together. They want elections, representation, etc., etc. It comes with downsides we're all familiar with. It's imperfect, sometimes messy and slow, and of course, corruption is a thing, and charismatic, power-hungry people will weaponize the system. We also have the Merchant Consortium. To them, whoever controls the resources should be in charge. They don't say it like that, of course. They appear extremely reasonable and talk about stability and growth, but deep down, that's what they think. And then, I think we also have a faction of hermit druids. They live in the wilderness, and for them, nobody should decide. They think civilization is closer to a disease than most people realize, and sure, nature is cruel, but it brings balance, and balance is the best you can hope for. And so now, if we zoom out, we see that it got a whole lot more interesting. None of these guys are perfect, and all have flaws, and the players will have to navigate this by making alliances, choosing who to support. It could change depending on what happens in the game, and it will keep the conversation going. Without the seed question, it would be easy to have the Crown Loyalists as just the noble faction, the merchants as the shady faction, and the druids as the weird guys in the forest. That would just be a backdrop, and the seed question gives them reasons, which will make players care. Just quickly before I go on, if you find this useful but don't know where to start, I find that starting with a few interconnected NPCs can also be a good way to build this. Which is why I built the Living Town. It's a collection of 15 NPCs with built-in secrets, story hooks, and motivations. They're all ready to just be dropped into your world to make your next campaign even better. So just check out the link in the description. And now, back to step 5. So far, we have a premise, our seed question, a cool villain, and a whole web of conflicts waiting to happen. But what about the characters? This is what we're gonna do in step 5. We're gonna ask, do all the characters have a personal reason to care about our seed question? This is not about quest hooks. You need to make sure there is something in their backstory or values that can connect them to the who gets to decide question in a way that makes this campaign's tension their tension as well. If one of the characters could be taken out of this campaign and dropped into any other one without any further modifications, their link to your idea is probably not strong enough. So, for our example campaign, what does it look like? Say we're going to be playing with 3 players, playing a fighter, a warlock, and a cleric. The fighter served the old king before he died as part of the royal army, and they watched him make terrible decisions. They're loyal, but starting to wonder if loyalty should go to a ruler or its people. What if the warlock's patron was Soreliak? Maybe they picked Great Old One and don't even know it at the start. Depends on your table. Maybe don't do this if you don't know the player well enough to know that they would find the reveal cool down the line. But the point is, maybe they've seen his vision from the inside, and even if they mostly care about getting stronger, they might find some of it at least interesting. And for the cleric, maybe his dad is at the People's Council or something, and he was raised believing in collective rule. But some of the new council members are really corrupt and hurt his dad, and he is now starting to have doubts. The point is, all of them have a personal stake in the seed question. Quick disclaimer though, I think if you want this step to succeed, you need to make sure about 2 things. 1, your players should know the meta tone of the campaign and be on board. In our example, they should agree to play in a morally grey political fantasy with hard choices to make. This only works if people aren't expecting to just kill goblins in dungeons, which is cool too. It's just not this campaign. And 2, you need to talk with the players and give them information about the setting. But you don't tell them the actual seed question. If you tell them this campaign is about who gets to decide what the world should look like, it will prevent the conversation from happening organically. You tell them about the vibe, give them factual details on the factions their characters would know, but keep some mystery. It's a lot more fun when the players discover by playing instead of being told. The question is your compass as the DM to make sure you're working on the right stuff. Okay, cool, but we're not done yet. We might have a lot of things so far, but how do we make sure it's actually gonna work at the table? This is when we move on to step 6, which is where we stress test everything. And to do this, I think you need to ask yourself, can your first session put the seed question on the table within the first hour without you naming it? The goal you should aim for is to have your players to walk out of session 1 already discussing the theme without even realizing it. If you can do this, congratulations, you have a banger campaign idea. But if session 1 is just some variant of you meet in a tavern and here's a quest, the seed question isn't planted deep enough in your world. So here's how we could start our example Sorelia campaign. The players arrive in a city called Darivel, and the old king died 3 days ago. He had an heir, but they're just a child, so there's no clear successor, and the streets are tense. Straight away, we'll give them a trigger. We'll put them in a situation that demands an immediate response. Maybe a group of royal soldiers shows up to escort the child princess to her coronation, and the crowd gets hostile and someone throws a stone, so one of the soldiers attacks the person who threw it. The players are in it immediately. Will they protect the princess, shield the crowd, try to disarm the soldier? Maybe they'll even try to kidnap the princess. The point is, it doesn't really matter. Every one of those possible choices is the beginning of an answer to who gets to decide. The seed question entered the chat the moment the stone was thrown. You didn't have to spell it out, but they're already engaging with it. I find it a lot more interesting than you're in a tavern and hear rumors of a dark wizard gathering power in the east. Do you want to investigate? Which is probably what would have been the campaign start if we hadn't put in the work. If you're struggling to make the seed question surface organically in session 1, try to trace the problem backwards. Usually it's because your conflict web isn't connected well enough to the opening situation, or because the positions of your NPCs aren't expressed through actions as well. So we still have our original an evil wizard wants to conquer the world premise. But now, that wizard isn't just a monster, but one voice in a complex argument in which every character has something personal at stake. And session 1 gets the conversation going immediately. I believe this is the difference between a campaign premise and a campaign idea. And that the campaigns that become boring for everyone, sessions that feel disconnected, etc., simply never found their question. So, for your next campaign, write down the premise, the who, what, where question, and then ask yourself, what is this campaign actually about? But now, if you go through these steps, you're going to end up with a conflict web full of NPCs. This method I just shared with you works on the macro level, but it does not tell you how to make sure your NPCs aren't boring to interact with, which could ruin all of this work. So click on this video next to learn how to avoid this by making the best NPCs your table has ever seen.